Privatized hospice care includes little oversight, mistreatment of patients, and a lot of fraud. And recently there were two massive investigative reports by ProPublica and the New Yorker that you should know about, especially if you have a loved one who is in need of end-of-life care. Try to find a nonprofit organization, because if you rely on a for-profit, private equity-backed hospice facility, you might be putting your loved one at a massive disadvantage. And you might be assisting these companies in scamming both the federal government and the state government of funds. Now, hospice care has been increasingly privatized over the years. For instance, for-profit providers made up 30% of the field at the start of this century. But today, they represent more than 70%. And between 2011 and 2019, research shows the number of hospices owned by private equity firms tripled. Yeah. So with privatization, what happens with privatization? Private companies have that one objective. What was it again?
Profit.
Profit. Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, great.
And Anna, I'm just going to add something else that's very complicated, so I know most mainstream media reporters can't understand it. You get the profit by increasing prices and reducing costs. Now, in the context of a hospice, what do you think reducing costs means? And what do you think increasing prices means? Well, you're about to find out.
Exactly. Now, they love defrauding, but the federal government and the state government, when it comes to the federal government, has to do with Medicare funds, state governments of Medicaid funds. And here's what we know based on you gotta read the New Yorker's report. It's lengthy, but it's excellent. So the aggregate Medicare margins of for-profit providers are 3 times that of their nonprofit counterparts. Under the daily payment structure, a small hospice that bills for just 20 patients at the basic rate can take in more than $1 million a year. A large hospice billing for thousands of patients can take in hundreds of millions. So there is money to be made. But there are some regulations pertaining to claims for Medicare funds when it comes to hospice care, okay? So I should note those federal payments are distributed in what is essentially an honor system, which anytime we're talking about private industry and an honor system, we're in a lot of trouble.
That's absurd.
Yeah, exactly. So there's very little oversight. And even in some of the instances where there is oversight and the DOJ steps in to do something about it, there are some really corrupt judges that side with the hospices, and I have a specific story to get to on that in just a moment. But first, the federal government, recognizing that an individual patient might not die within the predicted 6 months, effectively demands repayment from hospices when the average length of stay of all patients exceeds 6 months, right? Because the reason why they want to do this is they want to ensure that hospices, especially the privatized ones, aren't trying to collect Medicare funds by bringing in patients who are not eligible. You get what I'm saying? People who aren't close to dying, people who are not at the end of their lives. So they have this regulation that essentially says after 6 months, you have to start giving our money back, because clearly this is not a person who is who needs the end of life care. Okay, now they found ways around it,
of course they did,
discharging them as soon as they're about to hit the 6 months. So think about that. They have elderly people that they're providing services for, and they're collecting Medicare funds as a result of providing these services, because that's all they really want. That's all they really care about. And then as soon as they get close to the 6 months, they're like, oh, well, yeah, we're done with you. We're done with you, okay? And they intentionally seek patients who are not near the end of their lives, who are not eligible for hospice care, but they don't really care because they know that they're gonna discharge them as soon as the 6 months is up. Now, in Frisco, Texas, according to the FBI, a hospice owner tried to evade the Medicare repayment problem by instructing staff to overdose patients who were staying on the service too long. He texted a nurse about one patient saying, "He better not make it to tomorrow or I will blame you." The owner, luckily in this case, was sentenced to more than 13 years in prison for fraud in a plea deal that made no allegations about patient deaths. Now, and one other graphic I want to read, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, Cenk. Although a quarter of all people in hospice enter it only in their final 5 days, most of the Medicare spending on hospice is for patients whose stays exceed 6 months. In 2018, the Office of Inspector General at the Department of Health and Human Services estimated that inappropriate billing by hospice providers had cost taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah, so first there's the issue, the hospice issue, and then the general issue. Again, in business, you strategize about how to maximize profit, and you talk in words like metrics. So they would have metrics. And I guarantee you that if you investigated these private hospices, all of them would have one metric that would stand out for you: length of stay. Because however long they stay is however much money they're going to get. So then that will incentivize management to lengthen the stays to the maximum, 6 months. It will also incentivize them to dump folks right after 6 months because they don't get paid after 6 months. These are stone cold facts. Now, if you're a regulator and we had an honest government, that'd be the first thing to occur to you, right? And you would say, first of all, you would say, well, that means almost by definition, we should not have these privatized, right? But if we're gonna have them privatized, we should have them heavily regulated because we've built an incentive for people to abuse the system.
Yep.
In how we are paying them, right? And so they're gonna try to increase their revenue and they're gonna try to cut their costs. Cutting costs is, hey, if you haven't died in 6 months, you gotta go. You gotta get out of here. Increasing their revenue is, well, maybe that guy was on the edge of death, but maybe he isn't. Maybe we can milk it for 6 months. Let's put him in the hospice wrongly, right? But the problem is that we've turned our government into a casino. So it's an open auction. Everybody comes in and bribes whoever they want. They get whatever result they want. So of course people are gonna come in and bribe the government to make sure they don't regulate.
Oh, but Cenk, it's not just the government that gets bribed. Doctors be rolling in that dough because these hospices are looking to recruit new patients. And what better place to recruit new patients than hospitals? And so this is just so unbelievably gross. Some hospice firms bribe physicians to bring them new patients by offering all expenses paid trips to Las Vegas nightclubs, complete with bottle service and private security details. The former mayor of Rio Bravo, Texas, who was also a doctor, received outright kickbacks.
Yeah, boom, there you go. Both the government and doctors in one fell swoop by just finding the mayor who's a doctor, and you save on bribe money as well.
And get a load of this. Other audacious for-profit players enlist family and friends to act as make-believe clients, lure addicts with the promise of free painkillers, dupe people into the program by claiming that it's free home health care, or steal personal information to enroll phantom patients. In fact, here's an example of a phantom patient, a 29-year-old pregnant woman learned that she'd been enrolled in Revelation Hospice in the Mississippi Delta, which at one time discharged, get a load of this, 93% of its patients alive only when she visited her doctor for a blood test. So she goes to the doctor for a blood test and the doctor's like, are you receiving hospice care? Like, what's going on here? But like, yeah, and it's from this one place that discharged 93% of their patients because, I mean, they were probably quickly approaching that 6-month period, right? Now, finally, there are some rare instances where the DOJ gets involved, and that certainly happened back in 2014. They opened up a case against this one company called AseraCare, and here's what happened. So the judge ruling on that case, or the judge presiding over that case, there was a jury and everything. She was pretty corrupt. Judge Karen Boudry said that she had great experiences with hospice care for both her mom and her dad. But principals in the case disagree about whether she disclosed that the firm handling AseraCare's defense, Bradley Arendt, had just hired her son as a summer associate. I mean, that judge should not preside over that trial, okay? And guess what happened? There was all sorts of evidence that she wouldn't allow to be presented in the case. The defense team had petitioned Boudry to separate the proceedings into two parts. The first phase limited to evidence about the falsity of the 123 claims in question, and the second part examining, among other things, the company's knowledge of falsity. The Justice Department objected to the arbitrary hurdle, arguing that the purpose of the False Claims Act was to combat intentional fraud, not accidental mistakes. The fact that AseraCare knowingly carried out a scheme to submit false claims is highly relevant evidence that the claims were in fact false, the government wrote. Nonetheless, in an unprecedented legal move, the judge granted AseraCare's request. After nearly 2 months of testimony, the jurors deliberated for 9 days on phase 1 on October 15th, 2015. They found 86% of the patient sample ineligible for some period of hospice care. And so what ended up happening was the jury found the hospice company guilty. But you know what the judge did? She's like, oh, it turns out I made a mistake in my instructions to the jury.
Oh, what a coincidence.
I made a mistake, and since I made a mistake when I was giving the instructions to the jurors, we need a new trial. They have a new trial, and because of objections from the DOJ and all of that, she did a summary judgment. And guess who she sided with? The hospice.
Oh, wow, yeah. What a stunning coincidence, yet again. So, guys, if you're wondering, hey, whatever happened to the bank robbers? Remember we had Bonnie and Clyde and the gangsters, Al Capone, etc. They wear suits now. And so if you're a smart crook in America, why would you bother robbing a bank? It's not that you're gonna get caught, that's not even the issue. It's just an inefficient way to steal money. Instead, you start a corporation, you pay off, find a way to pay off government officials. That's super easy. We've legalized bribery. You just give them campaign contributions. They'll do anything you want. Give to both sides. Sam Bankman-Fried, we're going to explain in another story today, said, oh yeah, you give the Republicans, Democrats, you get everything you want, right? And then you go and you bribe doctors, you go bribe judges, etc. There's nobody minding the store, man. So all the smart crooks have set up corporations and are robbing the American taxpayer to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. No smart crook in their right mind would just simply do a robbery anymore. You'd set up a company to do the robbery. And that's exactly what we have now. So, and then you would have a mainstream media tell you that the robbers are actually the most honorable people in the country. Oh, corporate executives, they are great men. We have meritocracy. Because of their great merit, they have risen to the top. And guess who's there, is right there with them? The politicians. Because of merit, they have also risen to the top.
Yep.
No, they've risen to the top by robbing the rest of us. Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.